Well, thank you so much, Drew Bledsoe, for being with me today on the WaveCapital's guest speaker series on relationship building in a team environment. You're my 103rd guest on my podcast. How are you today, Drew Bledsoe?
I'm doing very well, doing very well. Honored to be in the top 200, I guess, of your guests. That's awesome.
It's a growing platform of mine, and I have my podcast listened to by listeners in 20 countries, including here in the US. And I've interviewed a lot of your fellow NFL former players and who are in a bunch of different halls of fame, including you. So it's an honor and privilege to speak with you and talk about relationship building and team environment. What does relationship building mean to you, and what has it meant for your professional career? Before we get into that, I wanted just for my audience at home, you're a four-time Pro Bowler. You're in the New England Patriots Hall of Fame. You're part of the New England Patriots All 1990s team. You led the New England Patriots to Super Bowl 31. And you're also in the state of Washington Sports Hall of Fame, the Pac-12 Conference Hall of Honor. And you also helped in the 2001 AFC Championship game, leading New England Patriots into the Super Bowl. And then you went on to the Buffalo Bills, where you notched your fourth Pro Bowl, and then you completed your career with the Dallas Cowboys. And would love to also talk about your wine business and winery in Walla Walla. But with Drew, when you think of relationship building and a team environment, what does it mean to you, and what has it meant for your professional career?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that at a high level, the skills that are required as a quarterback, they translate so directly into business. And it's been something as I've made that transition, turns out a long time ago now, but as our business has continued to grow, I've realized that it's just so similar because building a relationship, it's always one-to-one, and not every relationship is the same. Not every player that I played with needed the same type of communication. And certainly not everybody in our business needs the same type of communication. You got people that you come across that you just need to give the orders and that's it. Just go do your job, and that's all the communication they need. Then you have other people that, hey, you need to check in. Hey, how was your day? How are the kids? Yeah, cool. Okay. All right. Well, hey, just wanted to check in and make sure that things are going well. Oh, and by the way, I need you to actually get this done. And so, they're just there and then everywhere in between. And it's a continuous process. At our company, our leadership team, we had our big annual meeting just here recently. And I think of the 9 people that we consider our leadership team, I think 7 of them put communication at the top of the list of things that they wanted to improve on for the next year, even though it's something that we talk about almost continuously. So, you never say, hey, we're going to communicate better and then it's done. It's a continuous process that has to grow and evolve and change over time.
And what inspired you way before you started Bledsoe Family Winery, Bledsoe Wine Estates, Doubleback? Would love to hear all the different entities that you have under the umbrella of your wine business. But when you were growing up, what inspired you to play high school football, college football, and then eventually in the NFL, where you were the 1993 first round draft pick, first overall? Quite an honor. And I'm sure your family and friends were so excited. But even going back earlier than that, what inspired you to want to pursue a career in collegiate and then professional football?
Well, I mean, I grew up around football. My dad was a high school football coach. So, I mean, I was on a football field as soon as I could walk. As long as I could remember having dreams, my dream was to be an NFL quarterback, which is probably not all that unique. I think a lot of young people have dreams that they're going to be professional athletes, but I actually got to live out that dream, and it was amazing. And I mean, it truly was. Even the hard times were amazing because you're trying to do something incredibly hard with millions of people watching. It was just a hell of a ride, man. I loved all of it. I really, truly did. And then being drafted number 1 overall is a mixed blessing. It's a blessing and a curse because, it's really cool to be picked first, but that also means almost by definition that you're going to the worst team, which the Patriots were pretty awful in the late 80s and early 90s. But thankfully we got there and helped change that culture. And we set the stage for that guy in the picture behind you, that Brady kid. We set the stage for that dynasty that it became with the culture that we built with that team.
Yes, and I have Brady on my wall in the back because I'm a lifelong Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. I grew up in the Tampa Bay area, originally from the Northeast, met my wife here in Orlando, and we've been in the Orlando area as a married couple since 2020, but got engaged a year before, and I met her in 2018. So Central Florida is home, but being a Buccaneers fan, and Tom, after his playing days with the Patriots, obviously came to Tampa, won a Super Bowl. But I know that everyone always talks to you about that season where you lost the starting job. But I look at it in a totally different way than most people, because you're Drew Bledsoe, and it was so fitting that you led the Patriots to Super Bowl 31, and the fact that you played an amazing game and you did change the culture around. And so when I think about how that transition happened, where you were knocked out of the game, it was a life threatening injury, and thank God you pulled through. I look at it so differently because if it wasn't for that experience, you probably wouldn't have appreciated everything since your playing days if everything were to change. Because I look at your wine business as a way that you reinvented yourself and that you were able to prove to the world that, hey, I'm not just a professional football player. It's what I do. It's not who I am. I'm a man who could do a lot of things. It most likely, I'm sure, empowered you to know that, hey, I came in for Tom when he got hurt and helped win the 2001 AFC Championship game. And yes, you won Super Bowl 36. And although you had to relinquish the starting role by virtue of not because of your performance, because of just the medical component that you know very well. But I love the fact that when you came into Buffalo the next year, you still got the Pro Bowl, your fourth Pro Bowl, but also you were able to show in that 31-0 victory over the Patriots, although bittersweet, that it showed your resilience and your perseverance.
I mean, look, anybody that has the privilege of getting paid to play a game, I feel like you should relinquish your right to complain about pretty much anything. Because, like I said earlier, it was my childhood dream. That was a tough year. There's no question, you know. Unfortunately, I taught Tommy too well. He was famously just a sponge for learning, and I mentored him too well so that when he came in, the only problem that I've ever had with Tom is that he just didn't understand what backup meant. He was supposed to go sit back down after I got healthy. But, you know, look, man, life comes at all of us. I've never met a single person who hasn't been through significant adversity in their life. It's part of what makes life life. But what defines us is how we react to it. You know, what do we do when adversity comes? Do we crawl into a shell and go hide, or do we use that adversity as motivation to go forward and become better? And that really ultimately defines who you are as a person, is how you handle these things when they come at you. For me, it was important in that instance to be a good teammate. You know, it's easy to say you're a good teammate when things are going your way. It's a harder thing to be a good teammate when things aren't going your way. You know, you say it's team first, but do you really mean that when it's all of a sudden your role that you've been in for most of a decade is ripped away when you get hurt? It's like, okay, I said it was team first. This sucks for me personally, but I guess if I said it, then I'm going to have to stand by it. And so it's a lesson. And thankfully I was raised in a way where when you say something, you mean it and then you do it. But man, then I got to have that experience of playing in Buffalo, loved it. I got to be a part of the Dallas Cowboys franchise, which was amazing. You know, so all of those things that came to pass as a result of that, you know, I wouldn't go back and change. You know, I wish I hadn't gotten hurt, but that's the way it went. And I ended up having some amazing experiences because of it.
Absolutely. And when you did get hurt, whom were the first people that reached out to you?
Yeah, I was there in the hospital with my wife, and when I woke up, you know, because I was out in the ambulance on the way there, when I woke up later that night, you know, my wife obviously was there, but it was Kraft, Belichick was there, and then Tom was there, and Damon Heward, our other quarterback on that team. Those guys were all there. So it's a tight-knit group, man. We're all maintained a great friendship forever and ever, and great respect for each other, and that's never changed. That's never wavered.
Yeah, and that's such a big thing when it's so important that your teammates can be there for you and the coaching staff and the ownership. And again, I'm just happy that you're in a great place. I'm happy that many years later you can look back on those fond experiences. And if you look at Tom's career, if you look at other people's careers, you don't win every Super Bowl. I mean, some win more than others, but you don't win every Super Bowl that you go to. And there's a lot of players who unfortunately have not made it to a Super Bowl. And you can say that you played in two, appeared in the first one, started it, but in the second one, although Tom was starting in that second Super Bowl, that you still won a ring, but your fingerprints are all over that Super Bowl because if it wasn't for your performance in the AFC Championship game, the Patriots wouldn't have gotten to Super Bowl 36. And you were definitely an integral part of that. When you think of like after your playing days, did you know exactly what you wanted to do? And what were the steps that you took that led you to starting your wine business?
It's one of the things that I advise players now that are in the league. It wasn't a plan that we came up with after I retired. I'd already started to plan for what was next. We had a passion for wine. Turns out my little hometown that I grew up in was growing some of the best wine grapes in the world. And so when I chose to retire from football, it wasn't because I was sick of football. I still love football. I actually went and coached high school football for 6 years. It was amazing. I still love the game. But when I left, it wasn't because I was done with football. It's because I was looking forward to doing the next thing and to have a new thing that I was passionate about that was not really connected in any way to football. I was excited to embark on the next adventure and see if we could create something successful really from bare dirt and see if we could build a business. And it's been a cool challenge. It's been difficult in all the ways that starting a business can be difficult, but ultimately we've had great success with it. And man, it's just really gratifying to have a second career that has been in some ways even more fulfilling than the first.
I could tell it makes you happy. I mean, I can tell that you have so much passion. What are your favorite parts about owning a wine business? What inspires you every day? And what are ways that you're always improving every day or trying to make the best wine? And talk to me about your team and talk to me about the process of it all.
One of the things that I enjoy about the business is that it is so complex. First, we're in real estate. We're buying, in two cases, actually selling pieces of land. Then we're farmers. We've got our own farming company. Then we're into production. And thankfully, I have one of the world's great winemakers that's making the wine for me. It makes me look really good. But then we're into branding and marketing and brand building and customer service. We're also in shipping. It's a very, very multifaceted business. So your brain has always got to be working on the next problem. It's not just making widgets, it's doing the next thing. I also enjoy that it's very seasonal. My whole life has been seasonal. It's either football season or not football season, right? Well, now it's growing season, it's harvest, it's wintertime when we're selling and preparing for the next year, it's spring when we're pruning and getting the vineyards ready. And then we've got events that happen year round. So there's always the next thing that you're planning for. It's never static. It's never the same thing day in and day out. And I really enjoy that piece of it. But if you ask me what I'm most proud of in our business, when we started, the thing that I was most proud of is that we were making kick-ass wine. Our first vintage was top 100 wines in the world. That was what I was passionate about at the start. But our business has grown and we now have 64, 65 employees total. And what I'm most proud of now is the culture that we have and the people that I've seen grow in our business. And we have multiple employees that have been with us for over a decade, and I've watched them grow up, both personally and professionally. And I've watched them become better people, better business people, better parents. There's been a baby boom in our business. Turns out wine causes babies. I don't know if you know this. But at our business, man, a lot of these young people, I watched them get married and I've watched them have kids. And for me, that's the most gratifying piece of the whole thing now is no longer, the wine, which I still love the wine. Don't get me wrong. I think our wines continue to get better year in and year out. But seeing these people that have grown within our business and seeing what they have become, I really have almost this sense of parental pride watching these people grow within our company.
That's wonderful. And how did you start building your team? I mean, that's so impressive. 64, 65 employees. How did you go about finding your colleagues and growing this business? And I know that you have been married, I believe, over 28 years and would love to know just how much marriage means to you, how much your family means to you, your wife, your kids, and how much they've been instrumental in this business.
Yeah, with our team 6, maybe 7 years ago now, as we were starting to grow our employee count, we figured out that we needed to get really intentional about defining our culture, defining what our company was about. And so we sat down with our leadership team at that time and really challenged them to define the culture of our company. It was something that just wasn't going to come from me or from Josh, top down. It was, okay, what are you guys going to say? What is our company about? What do we believe in? And, by doing that with our company, when they get to decide what our values are, it's very easy to hold them accountable because no, this is what you said you were going to do. This is what you said we were about. And so now you have to live up to that. And so that part we got very, very intentional about. It's still a work in progress all the time of not only defining what we are, but also defining how we live out those values. You don't just take these things and put them on the wall and forget about them. It's something you have to be front of mind with all the time to really define who you are. And then in terms of, we're about 2 months away from 30 years of marriage. So, she's obviously a saint, but we raised 4 kids. They're all successful. They're all out in the workforce. One's married, one's engaged. So far, so good on that front. And my wife still likes me most of the time.
That's wonderful. I've been married for over 5 years. My wife and I, believe it or not, got married during COVID. So we had to split our wedding with our reception. Had the wedding ceremony in 2020, but then the reception had to be the following year because of COVID, which was a very interesting time for my wife and I to get married because we had this whole plan of getting married at Disney World, but didn't work out that way, but it worked out for the best. And so happy that we were able to tie the knot and our wedding turned out wonderful. But what for you, being close to 30 years of marriage, what has marriage taught you throughout your whole career and professionally, but personally? Because in those tough times that you talked about and the triumphs and then the tough challenges that you would have faced, your wife is your best friend. So what did marriage teach you in those tough times of how strong it was, and that your wife being there for you in those times where it may have felt lonely or confusing, or times where it felt, what's the next decision? How should I be approaching this? How should I be looking at things, putting things in perspective? Would love to know just what those experiences were like for you.
Yeah, well, she's always just been a very steady force for me. I would come home and she would know if it was a tough time during the season, she would know that, hey, when dad comes home, he's going to need a little time to unwind before the kids go jump on him. And so she would always give me some time, and then I was ready to be home and just be dad again. And for me, that's the greatest thing in a high stress world, having a stable marriage where it's your refuge. You come home and whether you won or lost, that's always going to be consistent. You come home and that's just the very consistent part of your life that doesn't really have much to do with how things are going at work. And then we've had a lot of fun with this next endeavor. She's certainly far more involved with this one than she was with the football side. I would say in a lot of instances with our business, she's the grown-up in the room, where both Josh and I tend to have a little business ADD where we want to chase the next bright, shiny object and take on the next project and the next wine and all of this stuff. And she's the one that's in the background. She's like, no, boys, come here, come here. Let's just stick to what we're good at. Let's do this first. And then if you want to take on a new project, maybe we do them one at a time. So she's been a really stabilizing force in our business as well, which is fun. I think the hardest part for me from that standpoint, Garrett, is just having to admit that she's right all the time, which she generally is. I'm not sure if that's the way it is for you, but certainly in our marriage, like, God damn it, if I would just listen to her before, I would have avoided some of these mistakes.
Well, my wife and I, it's very similar because she is right all the time. But I love the fact that she still hears me out. But to her credit, and she's very patient and she's calm, and I tend to have more energy, or I could be a flight of ideas, but I'm still focused. But she'll still say, no, you're right about this. Oh, that's interesting that you would say that. You're right about that. So she does appreciate my feedback or valid points I make. So it makes me feel good knowing that she'll say on one hand she's right all the time, but then in other respects she'll say, no, you're right about that. So
It's good, honest feedback. When they can tell you you're full of shit when you're full of shit, then when they say you're actually right, you know that they're not just being nice to you. They're like, okay, yeah, actually, we're right. I'm not just kissing your butt right now, because they'll tell you when you're wrong also, and that's important.
yeah, of course, of course. And I'm sure you were watching the Super Bowl, and I'm sure it was hard to see the Patriots lose to the Seahawks before that Super Bowl that we just watched from a couple of days ago. How did you feel about that, seeing your old team back in the Super Bowl? And what are your thoughts on Drake May, his future? And have you had conversations with him? Has he reached out to you, or have you reached out to him? But were you surprised also by the outcome of the game? I would love to get your analyst's perspective.
Yeah, I was really excited for the Pats. Robert Kraft and I still have a great relationship, a great friendship. Love Mike Vrabel. We were teammates just only for 1 year, but great teammate. And all of us that were teammates with him knew he was going to be a successful coach. And they were really, let's be honest, they were ahead of schedule being there this year. I don't think anybody would have predicted that they would have gotten there this fast, especially when they lost to the Raiders the first game of the season. That wild, man. The Patriots in the Super Bowl, the Raiders are the worst team in the league, and the Raiders beat them to start the season. So, I was happy to see him in the game. Obviously, super disappointed they didn't win it, but all credit to the Seahawks, man. They were just the better team. Sometimes you just got to tip your cap and say, you know what, they were better than us. That defense was just brutal. Drake was under fire the entire game and didn't have guys open to throw to because they were covering everybody downfield. So, he just had basically an insurmountable task. And I know it hurt him that he wasn't able to pull that out for the team. But, when you look at it objectively, man, there just wasn't much going on that he could have changed, to be honest with you. So, I think Patriots are here to stay now. They're going to continue to progress and get better. They need to put some more pieces in place, obviously, to get all the way over the hump. But with Vrabel at the helm, with Drake playing quarterback, and then they continue to build around those core pieces, they're going to be a tough out now for, the next 5-6 years until things change.
Absolutely. And, I felt that Seattle's defense was top notch, and the Patriots defense in the first half was also keeping Seattle from getting into the end zone because they had to resort to field goals. But I thought the difference was, to your point, the defense covering Patriots wide receivers, Drake May not getting into a rhythm of where to get the ball to. He did get it to Matt Collins for that touchdown in the latter part of the game, but Drake May being sacked 6 times and also fumbling. I mean, I don't know if it was so much about the Patriots offensive line that was overwhelmed by Seattle's defense, but how did you see it?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, this was not an aberration. You saw Kyle Shanahan before the game. They were asking him how you attack this Niners defense. He goes, I don't know. We haven't scored a touchdown against them in 3 games. So, it's not like the Patriots fell down. Nobody'd really been scoring many points against that Seahawks defense. So I just think it's a credit to them. The Patriots just didn't have the pieces to actually, man up against those guys. And that's just simple facts.
Yes, absolutely. You made the joke earlier about how you mentoring Tom and that, it was in a time where that was the role that you had when he was studying under you before he took the spot to lead the Patriots. But outside of that example that people look to, do you consider yourself to be a mentor in general? I mean, does it give you great pride when you were older seasoned veteran giving mentorship advice to younger players, or even after your playing days? I'm sure leading your winery with your colleague Josh McDaniels, that it's probably empowering and also feels good that you have a team like a football team, but this is a business team and you are the face and you are one of the leaders of the business. And therefore, for people to come and ask for advice or how to approach a problem a certain way or how to look at this a certain way, planning an event or growing wine and just having a very successful and profitable and world renowned winery, does mentorship really pull your heartstrings, so to speak, in terms of like, wow, I really love doing this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's across the board. I'm still being mentored as well. I still have the business mentors that are helping guide me. So I like being on both sides of that equation. Coaching high school football was such a privilege. These guys, I watched them grow up with my son. So a lot of these guys I knew when they were really young, and now seeing those guys grown and married and some of them having kids, and they still reach out from time to time, when they're going through stuff. And that's a great privilege. I love it. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I told the guys when they graduated from high school, I would get them all together and I would just sit down and like, hey, guys, I'm here. Reach out. I will give you whatever answers I have, but understand that when I give you answers, it's not because I did these things right all the time. A lot of times I'm going to give you my input based on things I did wrong. And so a lot of them have reached out over time. And man, it's just such a great privilege when they do it. I really definitely enjoy and embrace that role. And it's the same thing with our business too. As I was saying earlier, watching these people grow within our business is certainly a great privilege. I like to feel that I've been a good mentor to many of them, as they've grown in their professional lives and their personal lives. So yeah, no, it's definitely a role that I embrace. I love it. It's always flattering when people ask your opinion, but I'm also always very transparent when they ask me a question I don't know the answer. I'm like, man, I don't know the answer to that one, but let's try to figure out the answer together. We went through one big thing where Josh had called me and he's like, man, what are we doing wrong here? And I'm like, I don't know, but let's figure it out. So the two of us went to work and figured it out and really helped define what our company is today.
How did you two meet, if you don't mind me asking?
Our first winemaker was my next door neighbor growing up, just a true winemaking rock star, Chris Figgins at Leonetti Cellars. Josh was his protege. He'd been working at Leonetti since he was 14 and then was working under Chris's tutelage for the first 7 vintages that we made of Doubleback. And then when Chris was ready to go back and just run his family business, Josh was ready to step into that role. Josh was a winemaking prodigy, honestly. He started making his own wine in high school when he was 16, started his own winery before he was 5 years from being legal to drink, and he started a winery. So, even though I handed him the reins when he was only 26, he already had a decade under his belt in terms of experience. So, yeah, it's been a great partnership, great friendship. We tend to see the world the same way. And it's also kind of nice, Garrett, because we actually like the same wines. It would be difficult if I wanted to make one style of wine and Josh liked to make a different style of wine. That would be a lot harder, but we tend to see the world the same way in terms of the styles of wines that we like.
That's awesome. What are your favorite wines? Are you more of like a red wine, white wine?
Yeah, we're generally leaning more toward the reds, although I have become a Chardonnay fan over the years, particularly Old World Chardonnay, which is what we try to make with the Chardonnays that we make, the Burgundian style more than the California style of Chardonnay. But outside of the stuff that we make, I'm a huge Italian wine fan. I love the wines from Northern Italy, the Barolos and Barbarescos, especially if they've got some age on them. Those wines really need to lay down for like 12 to 15 years before they're really ready to drink. But if I'm not drinking our stuff, I love Italian stuff.
And what places around the world, you mentioned loving the Italian wines, but are you someone who loves traveling the world to different vineyards to get ideas for your own wine vineyard?
Oh, of course, man. That's what we get to call those business trips, right? We get to go see these beautiful places in the world where the great wine grapes grow, and it's all research and development. So those are 100% write-offs, which I love that. Anytime I can travel for research, love to do that. And there's a lot of the world that we need to go see. I really want to get down to Australia and New Zealand. We haven't been down there yet. I know the NFL is going to Australia next year for the first time, so maybe we'll go down and, watch an NFL game and then go tour some of the wine regions in Australia and hop over to New Zealand because there's some amazing wines from down there as well. But it's one of the benefits of the wine business is the great wine grapes in the world, they all like to grow in really beautiful places. And there's some scientific reasons behind that we don't need to geek out on right now, but it's just one of the hidden benefits that the wine grapes like to grow in pretty places. So when we travel for work, we're generally going to awfully beautiful places.
Absolutely. And, the only wine vineyards I've been to on the West Coast are Paso Robles in California, Napa Valley, Sonoma. I've only been to Washington State once. I've been to Seattle and Bellevue. Those are the only two places I've been to. But if I ever find my way through Walla Walla, would love to try your wine at your vineyard because I was researching your website and just reading all about your story. It's very inspiring because I love to see what former professional athletes, what business endeavors they get into. And you probably, I believe this because I can't think of anyone else. You're the only person who comes to mind in your post NFL career that you're involved in the wine business.
Yeah, there's a handful of athletes that are in the wine biz. And the good thing is, when we got into it, like in the 90s and early 2000s, there were a few athletes that had their names on some wines, but a lot of them were almost essentially endorsement deals where they would just lend their name to a bottle of wine. It wasn't necessarily people that were super serious about making great wine, but that's really changed over time. Rick Meyer, who was drafted the same year as I was back in 93, we were the top 2 draft picks. He's making some killer wine in the Napa Valley. Damon Heward and Dan Marino have a partnership in Washington. They're making some really great wine. So there are a lot of us, quite a few of us, honestly, that are in the wine business. But I think now it's more fun because more of us are actually really serious about making great wine. But yeah, if you're ever in the area, you got to come see us. If you've been to Napa, and we have great friends in Napa that have come to visit us, it's like going to the Napa Valley, but getting in a time machine and going back 40 or 50 years. It's still a little farm town. There are 140 wineries, great restaurants, great food, great all of that, but it's still pickup trucks and farmers driving around. It's very unpretentious, unspoiled. It's really a magical place to visit. So yeah, if you're in the area, you got to come see us.
I definitely will. And I encourage my audience to do the same the next time they're in Walla Walla. And last few questions. One, do you hope that your children get involved in your business or what aspirations they have? Is it football related? Is it wine related? Would love to know how you are envisioning, you and your wife passing the wine business down to your kids.
Yeah, one of my great business mentors a number of years ago told me, he goes, look, when you start a business, you don't build a business for your kids. You build the best business that you can. And if they choose to, then they can come back and work for you. And our kids right now, they're planting their own flags in the world. They're each in different industries, doing their own thing. And we'll see through over time whether they want to come back and get directly involved in the business with us. But it's certainly not something that we're expecting or forcing them into. They're doing their own thing. And so we're just continuing to grow and build the best business that we can. And then down the road, we'll see if they want to come back and work for us.
What's the best business advice you've ever been given?
Best business advice that I've ever been given that I would share with other people is to find great mentors. If you just go try and create the wheel on your own, you're working way harder than you need to. If you just simply ask people that have been there, if you ask them the questions and you really want to know the answers, they will give you the answers to the test. And I've been so blessed to be surrounded by some incredible mentors that have kept me out of trouble, that have instructed us. And sometimes we have an idea and I'll go to them and they're like, yeah, you could do that, or you could do it this way. Like, wow, I hadn't even thought of that. And so find great mentors, listen to them, and continue to engage that mentorship from people that have been there.
And I love how you talked about earlier how your NFL skills and expertise, your experience helped you get to this point. Like, what were things in your playing career that you say, it's because I experienced this, or it's because I mastered this, is why I'm successful running Bledsoe Family Winery?
There's a lot of things. We touched on a few of them earlier, but number one is building a championship culture and defining what that means and making sure that everybody is pulling the same direction. With the football team, one of the things that I know to be true, and I think it's true in business as well, is that culture is not equitable. And when I say that, what I mean is that you can have on a football team 52 guys that are on board pulling the same direction, and you can have one guy that can tear down your culture. And that's the same in business. You can have your entire team pull in one direction, and if you have one bad apple that is in it for themselves, that's not pulling their weight, it can tear down the entire culture of a company. And so we've been very, very intentional in, number one, defining what our culture means, what are our values, and then holding people accountable to live to those values when they're at work for us. But because it's clearly defined and communicated, it's made it very easy for us. And I think there's only been 2 instances where we've had to let people go. But that decision became very easy because, like, no, look, this is what we define. These are what our values are. This is how we conduct business. And you're not living up to those. So we're going to have to let you go. As painful as that is to fire somebody, when you have it that clearly defined, it makes it a lot easier to point out what's wrong.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Drew. Finish the sentence real quick. In 10 years, Drew Bledsoe would like to be doing.
Oh, this, that I love being in the wine business. I really do. And having a successful business, I really, really enjoy it. I know that it's going to continue to change. I know adversity is going to continue to come at us in ways that we can't imagine right now. I love watching our business continue to grow and progress and change. And it's a really cool lifestyle. We get to go sell wine, but when we're on the road, we're generally going to good places and surrounded by really interesting people. So yeah, I'm not looking for the next thing. I just want to watch and continue to build this company and see where it lands.
Absolutely. And with the exception of being a part of Netflix's The Roast of Tom Brady, and I love the jokes. I watched that roast, and what was that experience like?
It was amazing, but it was nerve-wracking. And I've never done stand-up comedy ever. So my first time out was with millions of people watching live on Netflix. So it was a little nerve-wracking. But my kids and my wife all made me run through the material with them because they were really nervous about it as well. And like, look, Dad, it's not about you. It's about us. We got to go to work tomorrow. And if you get up there and make a fool out of yourself, that's going to reflect back on us. So yeah, it was really fun. I was glad I got to go first so then I could just enjoy it the rest of the time because it's pretty nerve-wracking until you get up there. So they let me go early, and then I just got to sit back and have a couple glasses of wine and laugh at everybody else. It was great.
That's awesome, Drew. That's so cool. And I'm so glad you were a part of that because it's a fraternity of your former teammates and coaches and the ownership of the Patriots. But although the focal point was on Tom, love the fact that everybody can still build relationships. And even in that capacity, even in that form, you could tell that you all love each other, respect each other, care about each other. And I have to give you a lot of credit. And I know that you probably hear that, but I mean it from the heart because for someone like you to have been the number 1 overall pick in the 1993 NFL draft, the first round, and you never would have envisioned your career or your life transforming or progressing the way it did. And a lot of people, Drew, and you know this, and I'm 37 going on 38. You're older than I am, and not to date yourself or date myself, but I look to you as someone who has more years of experience than me. So you have a good 16 or so years of more lived experience. And although that our lives are different and you played professional football and I've followed the journalism route, I was in finance for over 8 years and now I have this podcast, but I look at you as a hero, Drew. I mean, your life is inspiring to me because a lot of people would not have been resilient. A lot of people would not have been able to compartmentalize and say, okay, what do I do now? I signed this 10-year, $103 million contract, and now I'm on to the next assignment with the Bills after winning the Super Bowl. But you persevered, and I'm sure you made your family and friends so happy that although the struggle was real and although that there were real emotions and a lot of heartache, that you can look back on your life and said, hey, I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor. I did it. I'm a winner. I am a winner in every sense of the word. And I'm able to take my NFL skills and experience and grow this very successful family wine business. And that's sought after around the world in terms of wanting to visit your winery, drink the wine, be a part of the culture, work with you and grow this business with you, and then you have your wife and a healthy successful marriage and your kids to support you along the way. And for my wife and I, we have a 3.5-year-old son. My wife is due in a few weeks with our daughter, well into her 3rd trimester. But it's just inspiring to look at heroes like you, Drew, and to see how you've modeled your life, because a lot of people will look to you when they face adversity and say to themselves, what would Drew Bledsoe do in a situation like this? And it doesn't have to be football related because you have lived experience and you know what it's like to get on the other side. And it was not only, a life and death situation, being that ambulance that was racing to the hospital, but that you turned your second half of your life into a very successful career. And I just want to thank you for being a part of the WaveCapital's guest speaker series on relationship building and team environment podcast.
I appreciate it, Garrett. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll see you in Walla Walla one of these days, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Drew. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
All right, buddy. See ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.